Welcome back to the Maximum Lawyer Podcast. I'm Jim Hacking.
And I'm Tyson Mutrux. What's up, Jimmy?
I sat down the other day to do my immigration answer show, and I started off by saying, "Welcome back to the Maximum Lawyer Podcast." So, one of the downsides of having multiple shows is you got to remember which show you're on.
That is pretty funny. Well, for the firm podcast that I do, it's essentially for clients. I've done that with Maximum Lawyer. It's like, and I don't even do your part. It's one of those
You
things
you
where,
don't even go first.
yeah, exactly. So it's, I've done that. I've done that before. I think it's pretty funny. Um, this is the anniversary episode. This
Hard to
is
believe.
pretty exciting.
Eight,
2016.
years.
I
8 years.
2016. It's absolutely crazy. So I got to tell this. I got to tell you this story. Um, I was so you had COVID, so you were unable to come to the mastermind, and hopefully you're feeling better. You sound better. I can hear your voice is deeper, so hopefully it stays like this. Because
Yeah,
it
it's
sounds
still a
good.
little scratchy, but it does sound better.
Yeah, I'm sure it doesn't feel fantastic, but you sound good. You sound pretty good. Now, so Charlotte Erdman, it was like snack time, so in the breaks, and she kind of like pulls me aside. She says, "Can do you remember the very first thing you had in St. Louis?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, it was at the law school." She's like, "Yeah." And can you believe what it's grown into? It's just amazing. And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Jim and I talk about that quite a bit. It's pretty cool." And it was funny because she was talking about how nice the bathrooms were there, and I said, and I had noticed the same thing, and I go, "Do you know what my favorite part of the bathrooms are?" And she goes, "Yeah, the the paper towels." And I said, "Yes." It was you know the quality of a bathroom by the quality of the paper towels in the bathroom. But I thought I got a good little chuckle at that. But it is crazy to think of like where we started with just you and me on I don't what was
Skype.
that Skype? Yeah, it's like I Skype's long gone now, I think, but I don't know if they're gone, but no one uses them. But we started on Skype, and now we've got masterminds all over the country. It's crazy.
Well, someone came on the Immigration Answer show this week, and he said, "Jim, I'm an accountant. And I want to tell you that I think that I and everybody else who watches your show have won the lottery." And I'm like, "That's weird. Why do you say that?" He said, "Well, I sat down and did some calculations as an accountant that I am. So you've done 635 episodes of the Immigration Answer Show. Each episode's about an hour long. I checked out to see what the lawyer rate for a partner in St. Louis would be, and I think that's like $450 an hour. But you're, the founding partner, so we're going to say 500. So 500 dollars times 635 hours of content plus all your other stuff. Let's round it up to 700." And he came up with some crazy number of value to it, and that really made me laugh because he was the first caller of the day, so that was a nice little thing. But yeah, I mean that when you think about a half hour at least every week for 8 years, that's 4 years worth of hours of content. That's a lot. That's a lot of talking.
That's with you doing the show too. That is a ton of talking. It's
Mm.
no wonder your voice is hoarse.
Well,
Uh,
Amani said so there's a brief time before I wised up where my office was back to back with Amani's, and this was probably 2 or 3 years into Maximum Lawyer, and she said, "Don't you do any work? All I ever hear you doing is talking on shows in there."
that's one of the downsides of bringing Amani into the fold is that
Yeah.
she got to see all the playing around you're doing.
So now we're far apart. She's upstairs, I'm downstairs. I've got lots of separation.
Um, Amy and I are across the office from each other, so I'm on
Mm.
one end, she's on the other end. So I get that you're on completely different areas, but like
How was the mastermind?
it was good. It was really good. We were obviously missing you. That part was a bummer, but no, it was good. Becca picked amazing places to eat.
Always
The
does.
Yeah, the dinner just was it was killer. It really was. The service was really really good. This place called Church and Union, and then the Rise Up guys they did golf with a few people, and then they also did brunch I was doing some other things, so I wasn't able to do brunch. But everyone that talked about brunch said it was amazing, and the venue was really good. And Paul Yokobitis chipped in for you, and I heard amazing things out of that room. And I I know one of the nights, me, Paul Yokobitis, and Christopher Nicolason, we were all just kind of hanging out. It was just cool to like talk business with those two. It was really neat. And then my group was great. The We had Ryan Weber, which is Tiffany's husband, in there, and he's not a lawyer. He works in the firm, but he does more of the marketing stuff. It was just cool to have that different perspective in the room. He's a character. I called him Jeremy a few times. I don't know, in my head I had him stuck as a Jeremy, but yeah, it was good. We missed you obviously, but it was a lot of fun.
So this is the first time where we had non-guild members in the mastermind. How was that piece of it?
It was good. I didn't realize was that the first time. I thought we'd had it maybe once
I mean,
before,
maybe
but
in the old days before we came up with that rule, but it's the first time in a long time.
yeah. So we had a couple people that were non-guild members, and they fit right in. It was cool. The Like, for example, Ryan. There was Katarina was someone else that was in that had come. That was they were It was interesting. My concern was is that people would be less willing to share. I wasn't super afraid of it, but I was a little concerned. And I just started mine this time by saying, listen, if you're not going to be honest with yourselves, and if you're not going to be honest with the group, there's no point in you being here, right? And I think everyone took that to heart, and they were very open and honest. And obviously, we can't discuss the details of what happened in there, but lot of great sharing, and so they fit right in. I thought it was a pretty good mix.
Well, it's funny with 8 years of podcasts and a couple years of masterminds now. I love, and I say this with the immigration clients that we have. We have a lot of people at our firm who go through the same process. And if you sit back and pay attention, people really go through the process differently. And so you can really learn a lot about people and specific people by seeing how they handle the process. So you and I have certainly seen some weird people show up at that mastermind and act weird, right? And obviously
Yeah,
we've had moments of real vulnerability, real honesty. We've seen people have a breakdown or break through and then really just sort of take off after the mastermind. And I think with the podcast, it's the same way. We've had people, you and I have had people on the show where getting them to answer a question is like pulling teeth. And we've had other people where literally in the half hour, I asked one question, you asked one question, and the people talked for 15 minutes straight without taking a breath. So it's really funny if you sit back and watch people how different people are.
yeah. Some people are really closed off. I think this is me guessing a little bit, but I think this is fairly accurate. The people that are typically the most successful tend to be the ones that share the most, and they're the most open
Mm.
in the hot seats. I'm not talking about in general. I don't know about in general, but on the show, and then in the on the actual hot seat, when they're on the hot seat, they tend to be the most open. Would you agree with that?
And vulnerable. Yeah, because
Yeah.
if you're not in touch with what's really going on, if you're not in touch with your body and your mindset, if you're really disconnected and disassociated from yourself, I think it's really hard to make the progress. And I was listening to Jim Rohn the other day, and he was like, "Look, if you have kids, you might want to spend all this time and energy on making them better. But really, if you want to be a great parent, and I would translate this to a great law firm owner, then you really got to focus on making yourself better. And then they, by definition, will see you doing better and they'll learn on their own how to be better."
Yeah. Um, I think about that with employees too, where the employees so what you'll do is you'll have a law firm owner talking about how their employees, they don't take initiative, they're afraid to do things, like all these, like it makes it seem like the employees are bad, right? And then it's interesting is like you start to pull back the layers, pull back the layers, pull back the layers, and they're not letting the employees do anything. They're not entrusting them with doing things, and so the employees don't feel confident. They don't take initiative. They do all these. They basically are a bad employee because you've created a bad employee. But you know, so I think that the parenting thing is appropriate. The thing that I find the most, or my favorite part of a hot seat is the the holding back, the holding back, the holding back, the holding back. Okay, now we've hit somewhere. Okay, so someone starts to pull a thread, someone else starts to pull a thread, and we start to connect the dots, and then you they come in with an issue that they want to talk about, and the real issue is hiding beneath. We just got to get to it. So, you're about 2/3 of the way through the hot seat. You finally figure out what the actual issue is, and then you can spend the rest of the time solving that issue. But I find that those where it's like, oh, where everyone in the room goes, ah, okay, that's what the problem is. I think that's my favorite part of the hot seats.
If someone were to ask me what have you and Tyson gained the most by having the podcast, I think that is actually it. To me, it's this thing that we both have now where we can listen, and if we're really listening, it's almost like a little alarm goes off in your ear, or like it's almost like, like when they do that sound effect of the record scratching. Like we'll be talking to someone either on in a mastermind or one of our hot seats or even on the podcast, and you'll just hear something and your ear goes and you just know this is where we pause, this is where we stop, this is where we mine for gold, because this is where the really good stuff is.
There'll be times I love having Marco Brown in the group because sometimes, okay, so and I'm saying this in a joking way, but it's true, but joking way. Sometimes people come in there and they'll just bullshit us. They
Yeah.
just bullshit us,
And
right?
it's the
Like
same bullshit from 3 months ago.
exactly. So, but Marco Brown and I would look at each other like giving each other like, okay, we'll wait, and then we're gonna start prying on
Pounds, we
this. Yeah,
pounds.
it's because that's what it takes. And you can give us this fluff all you want, you can, but we're gonna dig in. And so those moments are fun too. That's why Marco's, because it's funny because Marco will attack from one side of the room, I'll attack from the other side of the room, and we'll kind of back and forth until we really get to the issue. Because that's what we're doing. We're just solving issues. Like that's what it is. Um, so they're Sandy Van is funny because Sandy Van's like, she wasn't there at this one, but we'll resolve it. All right, we're done with that one. Let's move on to the next thing. It's like she's very wants to move on to the
Yeah.
next thing and the next to the next thing. She wants to solve as many problems as possible. But it's just
Well,
yeah, it's fun.
I remember too that early on in our career, one of our first masterminds on the guild in the Facebook group, we we did pounds, and somebody got really mad at us, and they didn't like that we were pushing back as hard as we did, and so we had to learn. We had to learn how to back off and how to couch things. I think we've gotten a lot better at that.
Yeah, I think that if we did it now, I think that it would be different because I do wonder if we were that hard or if we just had not gained their trust yet.
Yeah.
Where we were, we did it as a beta group. We called it a beta group. Like we had a group of
It was
12 or
literally the third. It
15.
was literally the third one we did.
Yeah, so we were new to it. So we may have been really really harsh. In my memory is that we were not harsh. We were just very
Direct.
direct. Yeah, very direct. We didn't pull any punches, which some people respond well to that, some people don't. Like um Russ Nesevich was the very first person, and he's crushing it, and he responds well to that, I think. But not everybody does. And so we did have to learn early on to kind of back off a little bit. Sometimes you can't go straight in. Sometimes you have to. I was telling I think I was talking to Chris Nicolais, I was talking about how you're effective at, like, I want to jump right to the answer because sometimes I can just see it right away, and just want to get to the answer. But you're really good about kind of softening them up a little bit. Let's massage this a little bit because we got to kind of, this isn't one we can go straight to. You got to kind of because part of it is you got to let them come to the conclusion, right?
Hmm.
It's
Like
not
a jury,
you.
like a jury.
Yeah. So you can't. We could tell a lot of people what to do. A lot of it's like they've got to come to that conclusion, otherwise they're not going to do it. And so that's part of it.
So this is funny because when Amani and I first got married, we read this book called Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. And basically, the book posits that for the most part, men like to just cut to the chase, figure out the answer. Now, this is very stereotypical, right? And women like to talk something through. They like to look at it from all angles. They like to take their time and sort of think about it, talk about it. And so Amani and I realized quickly that she was much more like men on that spectrum, and I was much, at least the way he framed it in the book. So I think where you rest, and this is true with employees, where you have to come down is curiosity. You don't have to beat someone over the head. You don't have to tell them they're so dumb. Like Amani has asked me many times, what was like in therapy today? And I was like, well, we just talked about stuff and we talked about this, we talked about that. And she's like, I think that if I was a therapist, I'd be a great therapist because I would just tell people how to solve all their problems and they wouldn't need to come back to me after like 2 weeks. So it's an interesting
That's
thing. And
bad
I
for
think
business, Amani. That's not good for business.
that's true. So curiosity, I think, is where you land. So it's not that I know everything. It's just like you might know everything, but you and I, we had to learn it ourselves. And so, it's great. One of the great benefits of being in the guild and having the podcast is that people are able to learn from our struggles and our mistakes and our wins and our things that we streamlined and all that stuff. But when it comes to making fundamental change, people are going to have to decide it on their own.
Your thing about curiosity, it is so true. If you think about just your everyday life, think about how much curiosity changes quite a bit. Where if you're not curious, if you're closed off, how like miserable things are. But if you're curious about things and you're open to learning, like just think about boredom, just ordinary everyday boredom. If you, instead of viewing things as being bored, instead being curious about your situation, it does change quite a bit. Like that's something that it's interesting that we're talking about curiosity because Joe Rogan he's someone that talks about this all the time. He's like, I'm just like this curious guy that just asks questions. That's it. And I've always liked that mindset. So recently I've been kind of taking that approach about curiosity of like, okay, I just want to be curious. I'm just gonna ask questions. I'm not gonna talk in this situation. I'm just gonna ask questions. And it is interesting how just your everyday life kind of changes where there isn't really boredom. Like boredom doesn't exist. There is not no being agitated about the situation. It's just being curious about the situation. So curiosity can solve a lot of problems.
Well, and don't forget, people are uncomfortable with boredom these days. Like we're used to being able to ask any question in the world with this phone. We're able to watch any movie we want in seconds. We can read any book. We can get unlimited content. So the act of being bored and the act of sitting still and the act of thinking about things so as to lead to curiosity, it's becoming a lost art.
It no, I completely agree. Hey, can we switch gears a little bit? All right, so I'm while we're talking, I'm trying to get to a good website. I went to ours. I've gone to a few others, but no, there's no website that allows you to get like to the older episodes really quickly. So I've got up on the screen.
Spotify does.
Oh, Spotify does. Okay,
I mean,
so
on the phone at least.
okay. Well, what I'm doing is I'm kind of going through all the episodes,
Yeah,
and because I just want to kind of go some of the older ones and just kind of
sure.
reminisce a little bit. This is the anniversary episode after all, so um, uh, right now, so I'm in November of 2021. Let's see. Let's look at "Delegate Your Way to Freedom" with Brett Tremblay. That was an interesting
That was a
one.
good one.
So the what we did one in November 2021, the six things we know to be true with Jim and Tyson, and
That's a
we
good
have
one.
the explicit thing on there. So
It means we were cussing.
that's right. Do you remember any of the six things we know to be true?
No, but Probably the people are being too scared and they're too slow. That's so.
Yep.
I'm down at episode 1, and it looks like. Do you know who our first guest ever was?
I think I do.
What
Was
surprised
it
you?
was it Jill Hewlett?
No.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, actually, no. Actually, it was. You're right. She was episode 16. I was thinking our first lawyer guest, and
First,
I'll give you a
okay,
hint. It's
hold
not
on.
John Fisher. I thought it was.
No, I knew it wasn't John Fisher because what I remember though we wanted to work our way up to John Fisher. That's what we wanted to do.
Nice. Yeah.
Um, so I think I do know this. I just
You'll be surprised.
I'm not. I don't think it was this, but I'm going to say Bernard Nomberg.
It was Mike Campbell.
Oh, I am surprised by that. I didn't know that.
We had Lee Rosen, episode 22.
Lee Rosen came on. Yeah, I was surprised. That was one of those guests we got early on that I was surprised by. They were, oh, we got Lee Rosen. I liked that episode. Lee Rosen's a smart guy.
We had Randall Ryder, and then Seth Price, and then John Fisher. So John was episode 25.
So Randall Ryder, that was interesting because I feel like that was a good episode. He's an author, right?
Yeah, he was like our first like outside person who we didn't really know, other than Lee Rosen, I guess.
Yeah. I thought that I don't remember what was the title of that episode, or did we just go by names back then?
Um, the bad clients you don't take will be the best money you never made. Oh, that's a great topic.
Yeah, it's
Um, this one, my favorite. We talk about this many times. Is Google search roulette, where we got on. We got on. Oh my God, we got on Google. We typed in a practice area in a city, and we came across some website that looked like it was built on Netscape Navigator or
and
something.
that was by mere chance, though. Like think about it. That was just by chance. That was you picking a city and me a practice area, or vice versa, and finding that website. I I wish we need to do. We need to pull up what episode is that?
That's 29.
So we need to at some point pull that up and see if that website still exists because that would be awesome if it does.
Especially if it was the same.
Yes. Do you remember the city or the practice area?
It was California. I think it was probably estate planning. We would always default to estate planning back then.
Yeah, that was so. We need to do that sometime. We need to figure that out. I don't think we have time to do it today, but that would be an interesting. Uh, I'm going. Oh, you know what? This was one. Okay, so you'll remember this one. January 4th of 2022. John Jantz, marketing legend.
Hmm.
That was one. That was I had wanted to interview John Jantz for a long time. Just he's like one of those Mount Rushmore types when it comes to
Yeah.
OG marketing. Now,
Duct tape marketing.
he's not a big name now, but I just think he's getting a little bit older. Um,
Lots of good stuff. Lots of good stuff. We had Gary Berger, then Craig Goldenfarb, Jason Osterly, Joey Vitale, Jill Nelson. I don't know who that is. And then the episode that was the number one episode for most of Maximum Lawyer. Do you remember whose it was?
yes, it was Will Norman.
Yes, Will Norman's. I remember recording that. I was at my son. So that this was April of 2017. I was at one of my kids' soccer or softball practices. It was about sunset, and I recorded it on my phone while we were talking. I remember we recorded it at night. It went long. We went for an hour because we actually broke that up. The first episode's 45 minutes, and the second episode's 27 minutes. That's crazy that we went that long. That's like one time ever we've done that.
Yeah, that was we did it twice. There's the guy, I won't mention who it is.
Oh yes,
They talked.
yeah,
He talked. We
that was
were,
brutal.
if I remember correctly, you and I asked one question each
Yeah,
on the
right.
first part of it. It
Yeah,
was so quick. So October 18th, 2018, Paul Yokobitis. It was literally day one for his law firm.
that was fun.
So he and I talked a little bit about that last week or during the week about that, and I asked him if he thought he'd have the growth that that he's had, and it's interesting. Like he didn't think he'd have the growth that he had so quickly, but he was confident in himself, and I think that's the way to do it.
So for our 1 year anniversary, the listeners took over the show and they gave one big tip on marketing or running their own law firm. So we had Dan Ryan, Doug Biggs, Chris Finney, Gary Berger, Joey Vitale, John Fisher, Joanne Holmes, Larry Weinstein, Matt Jett, Matt Vianello, and Bertrand. Remember Bertrand from
Yeah.
Luxembourg?
Oh yeah, Bertrand. I wonder what Bertrand's up to.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. It's funny because I'm scrolling. I'm still back to 2018. That's how many episodes there are. So Kelsey was episode 77.
Yep.
Ryan Locke 76. Chris, it was funny, and I apologize to the people that I don't remember you, but Chris Homer, I don't remember who that is.
He was with that. He's a good dude. He's with that agency. It's an SEO agency out of like Cincinnati. He's a good dude.
Yes, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that was a good episode.
I just didn't remember Chris's last name.
Mhm.
So there was one Jason Corner. He's a guy. He's a buddy of mine in St. Louis. I actually really did enjoy that episode. He's a nice guy, and we talked a little bit about business. I think that was the first time I'd ever really talked about business with him. He's a
There are a
good
lot
guy.
of people on here we met through Mitch Jackson, Alicia, Nicole. I think that's how I met Morris.
Bill Ellis is a guy. He's a marketing or a branding guy in St. Louis. I think
Mhm.
I met him through BNI. He's
Yeah,
also Wayne Pollock. Really interesting business model. I think Wayne, he's still doing it, and he does. What was it? Was it Copo marketing or
yeah. He
Copo?
does
No,
like
not marketing.
PR for bigger firms than like the ABA kind of law firms.
Right. Um, Michael Liner. He's got a machine going.
We
He's
had
out of
Bob Berg
Cleveland.
on. That was good.
Yeah, Bob Berg was fantastic. We've had him on a couple times now. Really good episode. Let's see, William Eady. The episode 61, the 10 things lawyers should say no to. I want to go back and listen to that one.
Yeah.
That's a good one. All right, I'll stop scrolling. Uh, Before we start to wrap up, any takeaways from the years? It's crazy to think that we've been going since 2016.
Well, how old is Hudson?
Hudson is 8 years old. So Hudson was born in June of 2016. So
So then we started the podcast in July.
holy crap, I had not thought about that. So he is, yeah. So the whole time that he has been alive, this podcast has been going. That's
Yeah, pretty much.
incredible. Wow, I hadn't thought about that. That's incredible. Yeah, and I mean, if you think about, okay, so your kids, like, just think about how
Yeah, so
all the pictures,
2016. Yeah, so 2016, my oldest was 14. Now he's living in San Diego.
and then so Nor, she would have been what, 5,
2009, 7.
7, so 7 years old. So it's just like they were tiny. They were all
Yeah.
just little tiny. Emma was a baby. Hudson was a brand new baby. Jackson in 2016 would have been 5.
How about your firm?
Um,
How big was your firm in 2016?
ooh, in 2016, let's see. I had at the time it was Angie and Kelsey, I think. So it was the three of us. So quite a bit different.
Yeah, I think it was Marwan, Adela, and I think there were three of us, and I think we were cruising towards $1 million, if I had to guess. Maybe less.
Let's see, back
Because 2012 I was broke. 2016 would be, so then 2020. Yeah, I would say, yeah, we were probably close to 1 million by then.
interesting. So back, I think in 2016, I was probably around 300, 350, right around there. Yeah,
Yeah,
quite a bit different
yeah,
than today. Today, it's interesting to think. What's cool? Here's what's great. You and I are going to be able to go back. We have all this documented. right?
Yep.
So we'll be able to go back from the very beginning and look and see just the how things have progressed. And I think that is the greatest gift, one of the greatest gifts for Max and Laura. Maybe the greatest gift is that our kids can take all of this
Yep.
and listen to it, and we will live forever for
Hmm.
them. And I think that
On
that's
Apple
yeah on Apple.
and
As long
Spotify.
we well, we'll have to make sure we keep the we used to keep it all in a Google Drive or something, but now we don't have
Yeah.
all that. Now it's just in the cloud somewhere. But all right, any final words?
I'll just say for the record, you got those noise canceling headphones, but I've heard every car that went by during the podcast. So there you go.
Oh, hopefully Sharon can clean it up. We'll see. That's yeah. The noise cancellation didn't work, I guess.
That's funny.
All right, let's wrap things up. For all of you that have not given us a review and you've been listening for this long, listen, we've been doing it since 2016. This is my plea to you that if you will you please give us a 5-star review. We would really appreciate it. We have put a lot of work into this. This has been a lot of I won't say blood, sweat, and tears, but a lot of work, a lot of passion gone into this. So it would be helpful. And I'm really pissed off that a couple people just gave us 1-star reviews without leaving a comment, and so it dropped us to 4.9. So to those people, they can kiss my ass. But
Yeah, fuck
for the
off.
rest, yeah, for the rest of you, I would love it if you'd give us a 5-star review. It really would mean a lot. Uh, all right, I'm gonna skip the rest of the stuff and just jump right into the tip and hack. So Jimmy, what's your hack of the week?
So I picked up a book that I didn't think had anything to do with running a business. Um, my one of my heroes is a guy named Marty Barron. Do you know who that is? You probably have never heard of him.
No.
So Marty Barron was the editor in chief of the Boston Globe when they broke the story of the Catholic sex abuse scandal in Boston. And there's a movie called Spotlight, which is great. It tells the whole story. It actually won Best Picture. And in the movie, it's played by Liv Schreiber. Well, Marty Barron was the editor in chief who sort of bucked the church and went ahead and published the story. And for that, I'll always be grateful. But he also then left to go to the Washington Post. And he was at the Washington Post before Jeff Bezos bought it. He was there when they decided to publish the Edward Snowden stuff. And then he was there during all the fighting with Trump during the first presidency. So it's his new book. And I'm reading it just more for the historical stuff. But Jeff Bezos just bought the paper. And, it's interesting because newspapers obviously are a legacy media form that was ripe for disruption. Marty Barron lived through the effects of the disruption at the Boston Globe and the Miami Herald before that. And then, of course, at the Washington Post. So the chapter where Bezos comes in and talks about how he's going to change the business model from being advertising focused to low subscription costs, high number of subscribers. The chapter on his thinking and the way he does it, it's worth reading the book just for that. You could stop after chapter 2, but just seeing how Jeff Bezos's mind works and how he's going to take this legacy thing, I think it'll pique your interest on ways that you can be disruptive in what we're doing as law firm owners. You're on mute.
I double tapped the mute button. I've been fascinated by the Jeff Bezos purchase of WAPO. I really have, and I know it takes time, but he's owned it for a few years now, and it has not been doing well. And so it kind of reminds me, and I'm not saying he's not going to be able to turn it around, but because his mind does work a certain way that ours just doesn't, right? But it almost reminds me though of when a billionaire comes in and buys a football team and says,
Mm-hmm.
"Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to turn this thing around," and throws a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of money at it, and the team sucks. Like think about the Washington Redskins, which is now the what's the name of it now?
The Commanders.
The Commanders, right? It's you had that owner, and I think it bought it in like '01 or around that time, and just threw money at it, and they were never successful. I hope that's not what happens with WAPO, because WAPO it's a historic paper, right? It
Right.
is an
That's why I
absolute
bought it. Yep.
yep. So historic paper, that's probably not why he bought it. He probably bought it so he'd have his own media company that he can control to some extent. But either way, I still hope that it does succeed, and I am curious. And so I am going to read that because I do want to watch. I've been watching what Bezos is doing, and I'm curious to see how things are going to turn out. But
Well, the funny thing is, so in the movie Spotlight, Liv Schreiber plays Marty Baron, and then Liv Schreiber narrates this book. So it's really because he does the Hard Knocks, so he's got a great voice. So it's really sort of strange to hear the character who played him being the narrator. But when Bezos comes in, the first thing he wants is metrics for everybody. Like reporters were appalled at the idea that they would be measured. And he measured it like, are you contributing to the profit of the newspaper? And he asked these iconoclastic questions like, are big investigative journalism pieces the things to go? And he came in, this really drove them all crazy. He said, what can we learn from the Huffington Post and Business Insider that are these news aggregators? And the reporters were all just like, so it really reminded me when I was listening to the blowback from the reporters, it was like listening to like old guard lawyers who say, oh yeah, we're a profession. We don't really do things like that. That's why I really liked it.
so I think what I'm about to say may surprise you quite a bit. I 100% agree with all those reporters. I think that
Yeah, sure.
this is
Sure.
a deeper thing with democracy. Like this comes for me, it
Yeah.
comes down to democracy and the what we've seen over the last couple decades. I think has a lot to do with the
Dumbing
lack
down.
of and the lack of investigative journalism.
Yeah.
The investigative journalism is what has cracked those major stories in history
Yeah,
where
but if the newspapers are broke, that's why it's such a
yeah
great
yeah
dilemma. If the newspapers are broke, they don't have the money to do that stuff.
yeah, and that's what does make this an incredible dilemma. You're right. Where on one end you've got these defenders of democracy that can't make money. And on the other end, it's just these fluff pieces that people, so for clicks, kind of like almost like BuzzFeed, that it's not doing well. So
Well,
there
you
is a
you read
middle
it, you
ground.
read it, and tell me what you think. I actually think so. He spent $250 million on it, which is chump change for him. So I really think he viewed it as a. I mean, sure, it was a media play. Sure, it puts him in the hot seat in DC. Marty Baron pretty much suggests that Bezos stayed out of editorial type stuff, not like Rupert Murdoch coming into the Wall Street Journal and trying to put his thumb on the scale. I really think Jeff Bezos viewed it a little bit as, like you said, saving that beacon of democracy and seeing if he could make it work.
Well, I hope he does. I'll check
Yeah.
it out. I'll check it out and I'll let you know what I think. But I think this is an interesting part of the conversation. I think this is that's just off of your hack. And now that we know that, uh, my tip is not going to sound nearly as cool. Mine is shocker, has to do with AI. There's a guy I follow on X that is it's called he's it's the Samurai, and the last two letters are AI. So Samurai, I think it's like a really clever name. So it's the Samurai, and the actual handle though is Samuraipreneur is what it is. So this guy's
You
great
got
at
to put
naming.
preneur on everything.
Exactly. And Samurai apparently. So he's I like the names, but he always talks about this thing. He talks about AI all the time, but called Chat LLM, and he talks about it being better than GPT and Claude and Gemini and all that. And I've tested it out. What it does is it combines all of those essentially. So it is better because it combines everything, and that's at least that's what it looks like it does. But it is a really cool tool. So if you all are used to like using Chat GPT and all that on your phone, it's a better version of that because it just gives you access to far more. You don't just use Chat GPT. You can use all of the other services too, which is pretty cool. That's all I got, brother. You and I are going to be doing the Saturday morning show for the Guild in 17 minutes. So I'll see you in a little bit.
All right, buddy. I see you in a little bit. Good
Hey, man.
stuff.